Precious Logic controller.
My work, I think, is going to be pretty good for the 21st century. Why the 21st? Is simply that there won't be the means until then. I don't think there'll be the means to have what I want, which is enlarged versions of my work and big scale jobs which will have to be housed in their own temples. The flip will be in a temple. It'll be 60 foot long, and its tremulous quality will involve you. Feel the tension of the thing gradually turning inside out and going wham, like the triggering that occurs sometimes when you get sudden feelings. Here is some of the sound it makes.
Studio models and various other paraphernalia. That's actually Thunder sheet there, the work that we've yet to build, and this is in Greenwich Village, the third floor of a building where Len had a studio. That's me in my younger days with running the little version of Trilogy. So we were hanging out together and Len was explaining what he wanted. This is working on the motors of Trilogy. There is a DC motor drive, direct current motor drive with a controller, and then there is a clutch brake mechanism, very clever mechanism made by a company called Bodine as the electric motor and Electroid as the brake clutch unit in the United States. And to show you how some engineering things don't change because they've been so well designed, they're still making exactly the same brake clutch unit, and we've got one coming out as a spare for Trilogy. The problem was that I had to take these down every night because these workshops were busy, and so it was really a hell of a time, and then put them back up again. And what made it more complicated in terms of the design criteria is that this is with the stainless steel that's called 304, and it was a lot cheaper than the stainless steel that I knew we had to end up with, which was a very rare kind of steel by a company called Oldham, and it's for valve flappers and it's for surgical instruments and so on. It's an incredible stainless steel that had been developed at that time. Len knew about it. I mean, he introduced me to this material. And so what we have on the left here is the representation of a whole lot of little rotary switches. So I'd spend hours and hours and hours coming back day after day, night after night, and watch the work, because you start to get the feel about it, and you start to get the feel about when it's, you know, it's dragging a little bit, or when you should have a better pause. Trilogy operating at the Govett-Brewster Art Gallery, and Len came out, and Anne, the lady he was married with, came, and everybody else was here that you know, had any interest in this thing, and it really performed fantastically well, and we were all in tears. You know, Len was in tears, and so was I, and so was Anne. It was a smoker, and here you see him again. And although we're both smiling and cheerful, it was in fact the beginning of it. Well, it was the end of the end, because he's in terrible health here and has leukemia, and this was a couple of weeks before he died. Some of you might know it was to be exhibited as its debut on the opening of the Len Lye Centre on the 25th of July 2015, and Evan and I had a look at it and we decided that it wasn't appropriate. It did not represent Len's images, it didn't, or performance, it didn't represent Len accurately enough, and as a consequence we pulled that work from the show. and I'm very pleased we did, because it was never going to be right. It was, some of the design was fundamentally flawed. So we started again, and we've got here some people, Sol for engineering, and this is teams and technics. So there's myself, there's Mark Holton, one of our electrical people worked on it, Tony Ewing, engineering, and Corey Singe, one of our very good tradespersons and engineer, all doubled up. And we're actually looking here is the work that I built 30 years before. But I didn't tell you that this was designed 40 years ago. Most people who come in won't even think about that. They'll look at it as if it was just built today. So tonight you'll see nothing less than what you would have seen here for at least 20 years, because we haven't had quadruples other than by accident in the past. Now we can do it properly. So when we've fixed this induced vibration, then you need to come back again, because you'll see quadruples. But what you see now is pretty good, and it's what we've been seeing for a long time. You can interpret this any way you like. Some people find it sexy. I find it incredibly sexy. But you can interpret it any way you feel. You know, there's no validity about it. You only interpret it one way. You just interpret it the way you like. That's the job that Evan and I were using, and I have.
Right.
To interpret.